Welcome back. You're in the C Space Studio with me, James Kotecki, here at CES 2025. And joining us right now is Conal Byrne, CEO, iHeart Digital Audio Group at iHeartMedia. Welcome to the C Space Studio.
Thank you so much, James, for having me.
We love iHeartMedia in the C Space Studio. We've had a lot of great conversations over the years. We want to talk to you about what your message is now for CES 2025.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you have in audio a probably wildly undervalued marketing channel. Almost a third of all the media we consume is audio. It's not sight, sound, and motion. It's just sound. Inside that third of all media consumed, the largest channel by orders of magnitude is broadcast radio. It's actually higher reach today, a bigger audience today than it had 10 years ago.
Wow.
So it's a really interesting time to arrive at a conference like CES and essentially offer a whole new, not so secret weapon for marketers to reach audiences at scale.
It doesn't intuitively feel like that would be true, which is why I love counterintuitive things like this here in the C Space Studio. So are people listening to broadcast radio in their cars more? Or what's the user behavior that's driving this?
Much of broadcast radio listening happens in cars, almost half. Now, what does that mean as a marketer? First of all, almost 85% of people who enter a brick and mortar of any kind, a retail store of any kind, the last media they will have consumed is broadcast radio. So if I'm a marketer and I truly think bottom of the funnel, like true conversion marketing, there is nothing more finely targeted than that, which I just described. So it gets really interesting when you start to think of broadcast radio differently. Two-thirds of it happens out of the home. It's actually a mobile medium. Now, all of that complemented with newer digital audio formats like podcasting, in which iHeart is a very, very big player, with the biggest podcast network in the United States, it starts to get really interesting as a channel.
And you're probably seeing people switch very rapidly between podcast, and then I'm going over to broadcast radio, and then I'm going over to some other music channel.
Precisely. What's really fascinating about podcasting is that as it explodes as a medium, it is perfectly complementary with broadcast radio. I mentioned that broadcast radio is 1/3 in-home, 2/3 out-of-home listening, largely because of cars. It's essentially a mobile medium. Podcasting is actually the exact inverse. It's 2/3 in-home, 1/3 out-of-home. And if you think about it, it sort of trues up maybe with your own experience around the house, exercising, kitchen work, whatever the case may be. So as a marketer, again, as you start to think of a media plan to reach audiences at scale in the audio channel, pretty good complements of each other.
So I know iHeart released this report recently on the concept of the ignored consumer. Is this what we're talking about? Who is the ignored consumer?
A little bit. So we are fascinated with if there is a disconnect in the marketing industry between marketers and the audiences that they're trying to reach. And we had a suspicion because of audio's undervalue in marketing, we believe, that there might be something broader going on. And I think we were right. About half of the United States believes that media in general and marketers in particular disregard them, overlook them, ignore them. It's a pretty dramatic data point when you think about an industry whose job it is to put aside biases and talk to folks who are not like them, to explain products and hopefully get people to buy them that are not like them. And so when we noted this, we of course have a bias. We want people to buy more audio, but we felt like it was genuinely a way to solve this. When you have almost 1,000 radio stations across all 50 states speaking in the languages of local and hyper-local communities, it's a pretty good way to solve it.
And is that localization one of the ways that you're recommending that brands reach audiences in these audio formats?
We run at 2 speeds, so we have nationally syndicated shows like The Breakfast Club out of New York with Charlamagne the God or Ryan Seacrest's show out of LA. If that's the speed you want to operate at, we got you. But yes, we also have local and hyper-local influencers that are sometimes the most important kind of very human, very real-time influencers. And yes, we offer both to clients, and I think it's a special secret weapon.
Do you see, so we're here at CES, which is an auto show among many other kinds of shows, right? So what do you see then as far as the growth or the trends with broadcast radio, or how do you see that playing out in the era of automated driving, augmented driving, people just now being in the back seat with no driver, maybe working on their laptops now? In other words, do we see these trends continuing given where cars are going to be?
I don't think so. I think, first of all, we're a pretty widely distributed content company, so we're anywhere our audiences want to pick up our content. I don't think I see any sort of deprecation of audio consumption in the car, at least anytime soon, even in the medium term. And I think in parallel to that, and it's been incremental so far, you see the rise of streaming and podcast content alongside it. So I think if anything, whereas today almost 1/3 of all media consumption is audio, less than 10% of marketing investment is audio.
Yeah.
That's the change you're going to see in the next 5, 10 years as people look for new ways to get reach in marketing. You cannot operate without it. At the end of the day, all of marketing dials back to a formula. The amount of people you reach, the response rate of those people equals results. We are tapping out without this channel. We are tapping out that marketing formula, so I'm confident folks are going to circle back.
That disconnect with audio spend has been mentioned a couple of other times here in the C Space Studio. I get the privilege of sitting in all these conversations, trying to plug out trends myself from what I'm hearing from folks. So now, if we just assume that CES 2025 is the moment where everybody starts to realize this, because they're listening to this conversation and others, who's going to win when they now start taking audio more seriously? What are things that people need to do?
Well, first of all, the ignored consumer, the overlooked average American consumer, will win. Marketers and media companies in general will begin to connect with them and speak with them in their own language, on their own terms, understanding their own values.
Yeah.
I cannot exaggerate the importance of this. We have not been doing it so far. So the first winner is actually the consumer. The second winner, of course, are the brands that are trying to reach them. They'll have more efficiency, they'll have a better ROI, they'll sell more products.
Do you think, AI is often discussed in the context of potentially exacerbating bias. Do you think this is a case where AI might help people overcome their bias by recommending new ways to talk to people?
Hugely. First of all, AI will help the audio industry. Let's start with podcasting. AI translation is in a place now where you have a medium that is largely a North American medium, not only, but largely a North American medium that AI will allow to globalize. Yeah. We are unique at iHeart insofar as we have an archive of 1 million hours of podcast content that we've been producing for 20 years or so that we can now globalize around the world. I think AI will also help us tailor and target advertising more real time to communities as they need it. That helps brands, it helps consumers. So I'm really excited about where it's going to go.
You mentioned having a hunch about the ignored consumer and then following that hunch. I noted that you worked at brands like Discovery and how stuff works. Have you kind of figured out a way to hone curiosity as one of your business superpowers?
I think it's a human superpower. And I think when harnessed as a creator and then offering that audience to brands, there is actually nothing quite like it in content. We sometimes try too hard in content. We try to tell a super great new story or retell an old story. And I think fundamentally humans are curious animals. And if you tap that, if you hit that vein, you can tell stories with engagement like, honestly, I have not seen in any other genre or format. So that's a great thing to have on my gravestone one day if that's where I land. But yeah, it's been a pattern in my career.
Well, I like asking questions, so I'm all about curiosity too. Conal Byrne, thank you for answering some of mine.
Thank you.
Conal Byrne, iHeartMedia, really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, James. I appreciate it too.
And thank you so much for listening and watching. This is the C Space Studio here at CES 2025. I'm James Kotecki. Don't go anywhere. More conversations are coming your way.